Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us today for our webinar, which is Closing the Compliance Gap, Strengthening Print Security in Healthcare. I'm Chris Newsom, I'm the Vice President of Enterprise Sales at Cobb Technologies. I'm really excited to have Steve Inch here. He's our Global Principal Security Strategist and Product Manager. We partner with HP. And today we're going to be digging into a part of healthcare security that often really flies under the radar, which is your print environment, the things that we're focused to today. And if you really think about it in perspective, healthcare organizations like yours, of those that are on the phone today, deal with a huge amount of information, sensitive patient data, and every single day. And what we've been asking our clients is, when was the last time you really took a close look at your print fleet from a security standpoint? And are you confident that patient records aren't sitting on unsecured printers or really floating around the office and where they shouldn't be? And that really the truth is, printers are often the easiest target for our cyber criminals. They're the blind spot in a lot of our security strategies. And that's why we're here to talk about really how to close that gap, tighten up compliance, and make sure that your print infrastructure is isn't putting your organization at risk. I want you to, as we go through the webinar and Steve goes through, if you have any questions that you'd like to post during the webinar, we'll answer them at the end. There's a question mark box on the right side of your screen where you can submit questions. And please feel free to just, submit as you like. And with that, let's get started. Steve, I'll hand it over to you. Take a deeper dive into this topic.
Wonderful. Thank you. It's an honor to be with all of you. A lot of activities happening even this last week. A lot of new news coming out on the threat landscape, what's happening in this space. So I'm excited to share with you. And this is what I've titled value-based security. And you might think that's cutesy, but the reality is we really, out of box at HP and with Cobb Technologies, deliver an incredible value. And I'm going to walk you through specifically how we try and do everything we can to embed the key capabilities you need to be secure at the endpoint of your networks, especially within a healthcare environment. So what I wanted to do is first just kind of have a little bit of fun as I click this. Let's go. There we go. And just kind of share with you the reality that we're all facing. Really, it is to a great degree a cyber tsunami of three key things happening right now. And I'm going to just go through these. And the first is the weaponization of AI. And what's occurring is literally in the last month, we've seen an increase of 1,265% in phishing attacks. So this is social engineering that is occurring. And a lot of this is clearly driven by AI tools that we all have the opportunity to use to great effect. But also that means threat actors have the same ability. And we're seeing a really massive increase. And a great statistic is when ChatGPT launched around 4 years ago, since that time, we've seen an increase of 76% in ransomware attacks. And the ransomware is released after the phishing attack initially gains access to the network. And then they move laterally. And really 90% of cyber attacks occur at the endpoint, initially occur at the endpoint. And that's a printer or a PC or what have you. And 75% of data breaches also occur at the endpoint. So we're seeing this massive weaponization of AI. And in addition, combine that with an increase in supply chain attacks of an increase of 115% year over year in the United States alone, which represents globally about an $80 billion cost to business. And the third wave, if you will, of this tsunami is the inevitability of quantum threats. And this is something we're going to get into here in this presentation, because the time is now to be thinking about this. And the reason I really enforce that and emphasize that is as of, let's see, Monday of this last week, We validated with the United States government, with the National Security Agency, that they have pulled up their guidance for internal national security systems, that nothing after 2027 will be looked at if it is not quantum resistant in the digital signatures for firmware and software code signing. That needs to be quantum resistant as of not 2030, which it shows here, but as of 2027. So this is key. And the reason that's important is because it's absolutely critical to understand that with a quantum compute capability, existing RSA asymmetric encryption, I won't get too techie here, but it will be relegated obsolete, meaning you're completely vulnerable. The ability of a quantum computer to figure out the ciphers that are present in the current asymmetric public key cryptography will be obsolete. So it's absolutely critical. You think about now the devices in your network that and where RSA and what is called ECC or elliptical curve cryptography is present, those are vulnerable and will be vulnerable to a quantum attack. And we haven't seen a quantum attack in the real world yet, but it is just a matter of time. And it's, again, the National Security Agency just brought this date up. So it's something really important. When you're evaluating vendors, you want to ensure that the devices, as we are offering and just announced with HP's enterprise fleet, that the world's most secure printers, which you've likely heard before, which is fully validated, are also now the world's first printers to protect against quantum computer attacks. And this is absolutely, critical to understand. And one of the challenges with this is that it's really difficult. If I were to ask you or your security teams, do you know where in your network across your entire infrastructure that RSA and ECC encryption is being used and the touch points that are quote unquote secured as a result of those encryption standards? It's really critical you identify these as soon as possible. At HP, we have three key elements to simplify what we provide out of box, active on our devices when they are placed in your company environment. The first is a layered defense in depth of hardware enforced resiliency. And that's a lot of words, but it basically means we have from the kernel to the cloud security layers in place that you don't have to turn on when you get this, you unbox the device. You plug it in, it's there working for you. Continuous monitoring of not only BIOS boot up, but now with quantum resistance with our 8000 series, that is doubly secure because we have both the RSA standard and the quantum resistant standard from NIST present on these printers. In addition, we have the memory, continuous memory monitoring that we do on the device with our memory shield capability. And also, we have the only zero-day attack, which is an attack that occurs that is previously unknown. We can detect that with our control flow integrity capability. That's part of an embedded feature called Memory Shield. And then on top of that, for device communications that go out from the printer to a remote server, which happens frequently, the device knows if it's behaving in a way that is anomalous to what it should be doing. And it shuts it down. And with all of these embedded capabilities, the device does a self-healing automatic reboot to expunge that malware, and IT does not need to be involved. It does it automatically. And I'll show you some real life examples of that occurring. Here are some case studies. The first is a large regional medical center network. The second is a telecom company with about 5,000 plus printers in their environment. And the third is a large Western European law enforcement entity that also engages in appropriate espionage activities. So here's this first case study. This is it's a network of regional medical centers. And what's interesting is their HP printers in their environment kept shutting down and rebooting. And they're like, what's going on? Well, what happened is, and you can see in the upper right of this screen, that is the actual device notification that it has detected runtime intrusion detection or a threat, and then shuts it down right there. So it isolates it just to that device, and it won't go beyond that device. Now, the interesting thing in this scenario is they figured out they had a malware attack that was present and infected their print server. And what was happening is the malware was going out to every one of their devices, their printers, and seeing if it could get control and inject itself in there. And the devices stopped it. It recognized it, so it identified and then went forward. And it does a self-healing reboot. And let me show you if this video plays appropriately. And yeah, this should be fine. So this is what happens when an attack occurs on an HP enterprise device. So the device it shows that, oh, there's an intrusion. It detected it. It then shuts down and reboots. Nothing exciting, no explosions or anything. It just knows what it needs to do, and it then is into the reboot process of the device to get it back to a secure state. So this is a live video of one of our enterprise devices that went through that particular issue that was had. And let's see if I can, there we go. Okay. So another example was we had a customer, a large telecom customer that in the European Union, and they failed their cybersecurity audit, their first one. And they didn't understand that the reason they actually failed it was they had zero visibility of their printers that were on the network. And that was a real challenge because they just didn't think, and printers realistically are a low priority. Understandably, there's a lot of alerts happening across the networks that you and your organizations have and use, and the security teams have a lot of priorities that they have to address in real time. And printers just tend to be, either overlooked or they're just a low priority. Well, this was similarly the case with this particular customer. And what we ended up doing is we actually demonstrated to them how we could intercept the data stream from a laptop to the destination printer and capture the documents that were flowing through that data stream. What we did is we put a Raspberry Pi and an active network tap on the back of a printer and then captured that information and then emailed it back to them. Clear demonstration of a man-in-the-middle attack, and we did this all remotely. Yes, it did require a physical, but it's not hard to do this kind of thing. If you have a malicious insider or someone, who is a disgruntled employee, for example. So these kinds of things can occur. Now, the solution that we provided is our HP Security Manager software. This is software that gives you full visibility of the printers in your network across the fleet, gives you an idea of you can create a security policy, and you can deploy it to groups of devices and a separate policy to others, or you can have them all aligned to a single policy globally for all your printers. The second element that this provides is device certificate management. which is, think of it as a driver's license or a passport for each device that states this is, I am a printer, I am an authorized and validated printer in your network, and I will accept your, your authentication or your attempt at authenticating to use me. It's that kind of, and it's critical to deploy device certificates across your fleet. If you don't have them, you can't see these printers. In addition, this software will do a quick analysis in literally 3 to 5 seconds. Across your network, you can have 100,000 printers, and it will give you the status of the vulnerability of the firmware running on every single device. And it rolls it up into a quick view with a traffic light kind of approach visually, so you can see actual printers that need to be addressed that are running firmware that has not been updated and thus likely have vulnerabilities that have already been fixed, but you need to update the firmware. In addition, it shows devices that are out of support life, which is absolutely critical to know. And then you refresh those individual devices. And then the third is a large law enforcement entity. Now, this was interesting because all of their customers were, or their employees were locked down incredibly tight from a security standpoint. They had locked laptops. They had no way to print locally, and they disabled all of the USB host ports, which we tend to do just for security reasons out of the factory. But in this instance, when they deployed all the printers, they just had everything locked down, and they realized that, wow, we really need our employees to print. And so their option was, initially when they came to us, they said, well, we have to buy a gateway device, network gateway, kind of like a VPN that we can provide at a cost to each of our individual users at a total summary cost of over $600,000. And we said, hold on. We have around 30 LaserJet enterprise devices that have embedded VPN in the device. And they were like, okay, this works. So it saved them from having to actually purchase these gateway devices. So a really good ending there. Okay, let's go forward. Let's see. Can't really see the. Okay, great. So let's talk about our security differentiation as it relates to these printers, and something you need to look for when you're evaluating your print fleet. These are the kinds of vulnerabilities that can be that are present on printers. Printers are very much like PCs or servers that print. They have all of the hard drives, they have the software, they have the network connections, all of that present. Now, the kinds of attacks that can occur are, let's go here, are these. And let me go back. These are the kinds of attacks. You'll see things like I mentioned earlier, the man in the middle attack. We'll see remote code execution or zero-day attacks that occur, injection attacks. You can have a USB stick with malware being put into the printer. You can have, while the device and memory, if it's in sleep mode, it can easily get attacked if you don't have the appropriate embedded capabilities. For printers, it's important to know there is no such thing as you have with PCs like antivirus software. That does not exist for printers. And the reason is individual OEMs, manufacturers have our unique internal operating systems and firmware. And so the important thing is to ensure you've got the security levels and layers in place to specifically manage the reality of the device. Now let's take a printer and say, okay, how long is its lifespan? Well, in your production environment, in your environment, a printer has a, let's just say for conversation, it'll be there for 5 years. What happens? What percentage of the time is that printer in booting up mode, in BIOS, where BIOS is engaged, and then it goes into the firmware and then the software and it boots up? Well, it's interesting that it's really less than 1% of the 5 years of the life of the printer is spent in boot up or BIOS. The remaining 97 plus percent of the device's life is in what is called runtime. And this includes two things. In use, when an end user is walking up to it and it's a shared device and they're accessing the capabilities at the control panel. And then two, when it's asleep. And that's the majority of this activity is occurring. And this is when the device is most vulnerable. So let's take a look at how on, let's see, there we go, on what the print manufacturers across the spectrum are providing in terms of security capabilities embedded in the device. And what you can see here is we've got the 1% of the life is above the big black line. That is the boot up time in the printer's 5-year life, less than 1%. I'm happy to say that not only has HP, who we continue to lead in this area, but what's great is we're seeing parity across all printers because in terms of allow listing, so that's firmware and software code validation, but there are only two vendors who have matched our capability for our BIOS protection as it relates to current printers, not quantum resistant. We are the only one with quantum resistance. Now, the interesting thing is these other two vendors, there are nuances to this where theirs is default off out of box because it has a negative impact on performance or can. Now, what's interesting is ours is default on and active right out of the box. And it's important to know that. But I applaud their efforts in really building up their security capabilities. The other is the new quantum resistance that we have just announced. And that is, we're waiting for any competitor probably. We anticipate around 2 to 3 years from now that someone might also be able to provide this capability. So as the world's first with quantum resistance, we're thrilled to bring that to market. Then that's all of that is 1% of the life of the printer, right? So the important thing is what's happening with the 97 plus percent of the life of the printer. Well, not a lot is happening here from a competitive perspective, unfortunately. We have our continuous memory inspection with Memory Shield. We also have the hardware-based runtime intrusion detection, and also the control flow integrity, which is the zero-day protection, and the outbound communication with Connection Inspector. Those are available on our HP Enterprise printers. The interesting thing to note is that a lot of competitors have been claiming, oh, we have what HP has, or we do these capabilities. And quite frankly, it's not accurate. They will claim that they have partnerships, which they do, with Trellix, which was formerly McAfee. That is document, it's great. It's virus scanning of documents coming in and out of the printer, but it has nothing to do with when the device is in sleep mode and what's happening when, you know, it's the memory. The Bitdefender, similarly. So they claim it's runtime intrusion detection, but you've got to get under the hood a bit and say, okay, it's really not. But you know, this just gives you a framework for what's happening in the market today. So as we look at this, it's important to also note that you want to ensure that you have walk-up authentication at the device. This is secure access to actual capabilities on these printers. And with our HP Authentication Suite, your users can do multi-factor authentication without having to enter a username and password on the control panel, which can be a real burden every time they want to use the software available to them on the printer. With this, it's a quick presentation of the QR code on the control panel, the use of the Authenticator app to then validate. You get a message back from your Microsoft Entra ID cloud if you've deployed Entra ID as your identity provider in your network. And it comes back with a 2-digit code you enter on the mobile phone, and you're right in to the full suite of Office 365 capabilities, and only available with HP devices. And what's great is you have full access to MailFlow, which is their version of Outlook. You have full access to Teams and also to OneDrive. So all your files in OneDrive can be right there on the device, easy to access, and then you work through your workflow. And you're logging in not to just one app, you're logging into the platform, which is the Office 365 suite. The other thing I wanted to share with you is in working with Cobb, this is a great capability that you have, and they have a similar firmware vulnerability assessment that they can do on your behalf and really identify where there is potential risk in your environment from a print perspective. And then also they can work with you on ensuring compliance, which is absolutely critical with HIPAA, and ensuring you have the appropriate compliance across your fleet of the security settings on these devices. And so this gives you full compliance as well as a robust set of executive reports that are available to you across your fleet on an ongoing basis. And it's a great tool that allows you, and both of these are really key. So please chat with Cobb to ensure that, and work with them to ensure you've got the appropriate fleet configuration, that your security posture is dialed, and they can assist with ongoing monitoring and security capabilities. So with that, I'll close and open it up to questions.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Appreciate it. We're going to open it up to questions in the question box. Please let me know if you've entered any questions yet. Kind of go from there, and then we'll kind of wrap it up. So I think, Steve, we've got one question, which is, hold on, let me find this. So one of the questions we got is, if we have legacy printers, how can they transition to be more secure, compliant without any major disruptions? What does the onboarding process look like? Now, that's something I can kind of take as well, Steve. And so one of the things
Go for it. Yep.
Yeah, so I mean, the good news is, when we talk about how do we transition to be more secure and compliant, one of the things that clients worry about is, do I have to rip and replace all my devices? And short answer is, the good news is you don't have to rip and replace all your legacy printers to improve security, but there are practical and phased steps and approaches to transition legacy devices to a more compliant, secure print environment. Steve kind of went over that, but everybody understands, at least in the healthcare environment, we want minimal disruption. So how do we make legacy printers more secure? Steve spoke about implementing a secure print management solution, monitoring and auditing usage. Those are big things as well. Encrypting print jobs in transit, right? Data encryption at rest, applying firmware updates. Those are things that we can do from a legacy print environment, which is very important, because I think even Steve, prior to that, right? We talk about this all the time, is what does the onboarding process look like? I think the number one thing is to do an assessment. We talk about a security assessment all the time. So assessing your print environment, identifying which devices are legacy and which ones are compliant, where the security gaps exist. Those are the things that we want to look at. Really, strategy alignment, right? Where are we from a strategy perspective and security? So all of these things go into how do we transition to be more compliant without disruptions, and what does the onboarding process look like? And there's lots of different flavors that can go. We always start with a security assessment 9 times out of 10. And, Steve, I think as part of this, right?
Absolutely. It's
Right.
critical. Yeah.
Okay. Last question that we've got is, how can we ensure our print security policies align with HITRUST and other compliance frameworks? This is a great question, right? Because everyone's talking about HITRUST. Sometimes we're unsure what that means. But when we think about that question is, how do we map print security to HITRUST requirements, right? That's the thing that we're looking to focus, right? So we talk about access control, audit logs, physical security, data protection. All those things go into that, and it's reviewing your print environment, through the lens of each of those relevant HITRUST control families to really ensure that the policies that you have are addressing each one. And that's where I think HP and Cobb come in to really help conduct this type of mapping in your current environment. You've got role-based access, right? We talk about badge authentication, PIN authentication. How do I access the device and knowing who's there? As part of that print security, we talk about implementing logging and audit trails so we understand where print activity is coming from. And this, by the way, that aligns with the HITRUST audit logging and the HIPAA security rules. Those are things that we should be doing in the healthcare industry. You also look at secure print release, which aligns with HIPAA technical safeguards with HITRUST. We're encrypting data in transit and at rest, which is humongous as well, which aligns with HITRUST data protection. These are the things that we can go on and on and on about. And I can talk about how we can do it for the next 6 minutes. But, honestly, it's about engaging us and letting us come in and do the assessment and understanding your environment. That's going to take you guys to the next level from a healthcare security standpoint. Steve, I don't have anything to add. I'm a sales
No,
guy. Like,
you're absolutely right. I mean, we do this just to let you know. We have a whole team that works with some of our direct customers, some of the larger ones around the globe, and those senior security advisors go in, and the first thing they have to do is an assessment. I mean, otherwise you have no baseline. So that is absolutely critical, and Cobb can help all of you with the ability to do that at a fairly quick pace to take that burden off of you, because it is, that's one of the joys of having a trusted advisor like Cobb. So yeah,
great.
it's great.
There's 9 minutes left. We don't have any questions at all. I'm going to kind of wrap this up, give everybody a little bit of time back in their day. But again, Steve, thanks so much. You shared a bunch of insights with everybody on the call today. One of the things I'm going to take away is I really enjoyed your term, cyber tsunami. So you might hear me use the
Yeah,
word cyber tsunami more often. But, it's always great to hear your perspective, right? And I know our audience got a lot of valuable information from your experience, from the practical advice that you gave. We really thank you for taking the time, to join us. And we spent
no,
the last 20
absolutely.
minutes, Steve, discussing how to protect patient data and how it goes beyond, meeting compliance requirements. And it's about maintaining the trust of our patients and our community. And while it's easy to focus, on the servers and the networks, the print environment, and I've been doing this for 20 years, is often overlooked. And that's where the real, risks can hide. And when I started in the industry 20 years ago, it was about quality of printing, how fast it could go, reliability. It's still those things, but the number one thing is security, right? And as I talk to our audience and I wrap up, some of the things I really want to consider for you guys to consider is, do you know who has access to printed patient information in your organization, right? If it gives you pause, it might be time to take a closer look. And that's where, we're here as a resource. Whether you're looking to better really understand your environment, exploring ways to strengthen security, we're really happy to help wherever we can. And we want to really, from Cobb Technologies, from myself, from HP, we want to thank everyone again for being part of the conversation. We appreciate your time and the work that everyone does to keep patient data safe every day. Please reach out to anyone here at Cobb, and we're more than willing to help. So thank you again.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Feel
Steve.
free to reach out. Thank you.
Take care.